Welcome to the Game On podcast tonight. Trade period winding up, but a handful of stars will need to wait. The AFLW needs to be shown a little more respect and admit they got it wrong. And Bathurst, first-time winners and without incident, leading from start to finish, which was amazing, actually.
Go to Chico Rolls.
Absolutely. All right, let's do this. Welcome to the Game On podcast. My name's Pete. Once again, Malcolm is here with me in the studio. And, mate, let's talk about your good for the week or weekend.
I'm going to pick something a little bit obscure out of left field as a cricket nut. Went along yesterday to have a look at the one-dayers. And all games at part 3. There's 3 games take place at part 25, all next to each other, so you can wander around and have a look at all 3 games.
Is that a new initiative from the SACA?
They played 2020s that way last year. Apparently this year a bit more one-days, but I think it was great. It was good. A good number of people there.
Yep.
Over the weekend, Glenelg beat Southern Districts pretty easily.
Yep.
And Adelaide Uni won easily, so there were 2 games finished pretty early. Yep. But the other games,
we'll talk about them a little bit later. Yep. But certainly your highlight there, mate.
Yeah, highlight was West Torrens chasing Sturt's 335. Now I reckon most sides in a chase probably go too hard and get bowled out for 270, 280, and nearly. But they actually were really, really calculated and played really smart. Harry Menenti up the just when they had to up the tempo, and he got 60 odd. But
is that unusual for the first game of the season to have such high scoring runs?
Probably it is. It is unusual, but to the credit of Trent Kelly and the staff there at Carramrolton, the wickets are bloody flat.
Mm-hmm.
But both sides yesterday in the Sturt and West Torrens game dropped catches. Sturt dropped 3, West Torrens dropped 4. Now you catch those. Totally different game.
Absolutely.
But Daniel Drew, to his credit, 143 not out. And Harry Nielsen came in. It's the best I've ever seen Harry bat. 86 not out off 63, I think it was, and just hit the ball beautifully. Harry can play too many ramps and that sort of stuff at times yesterday. No, he hit him straight, hit a couple of straight sixes and just batted beautifully. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, no, it was good to watch. Carter made 100 for probably the remarkable effort was Ryan King on Saturday for East Torrens, made 181 off 103 balls. It was 150 odd in boundaries, including 13 sixes.
Wow. And
he got out in the 33rd over of the game. So if he hadn't got out, East Torrens were actually on target to make 500.
That is insane.
Which is just a ridiculous. And Adelaide, to their credit, made 305 in reply to East Torrens 375.
It's a lot of runs.
Doesn't it sound ridiculous? Fell away to only make 375.
That is unbelievable.
So it was 6 century makers in general. So Jackson, Adair for Uni in his first game for Uni. Harvey McKenzie, recruited from Victoria, is in the state squad. His first game for Sturt made 155.
Yep.
Not often you make 155 and be on the losing side in a one day. So there was 6 all up and a 91 as well.
It's unbelievable, mate.
So,
A big good for the weekend coming out of the cricket there, and I know we're starting to transition a little bit away from the football, but we've got to cover a little bit before we really immerse ourselves in the cricket season.
Yeah, and look, South Australia, there a couple of encouraging signs, a couple of disappointing signs. So batting collapse in the first innings when we were 3 for 200 odd and lost 7 for 43. But McSweeney making runs, may well have made hundreds in both innings if he hadn't got run out in the first innings.
Yep.
Alex Carey, 90 and 111. South Australia, 4 for 23 on the last day with Lyon bowling. You're thinking, we're going to go out for 150 odd here.
Yep.
6 for 300 odd at stumps. And really, if Carey hadn't got out, we probably would have got them. But it was really good that Daniel Drew, 40 odd not out, and Nathan McSweeney with 124 not out, batted us through to get the draw. So there were draws in all 3 first Shield games, which was...
But there was also a lot of runs made in those games.
Yeah, the Victoria Tasmania game was a bat fest. It can be at Junction in Melbourne. But the WA Victoria game, WA Queensland game fluctuated a bit. Bancroft made a pair.
Mm-hmm.
Nessa was on a hat trick, third ball of the season for him. So, yeah, a couple of things there. Probably the other cricket news which has come out today is Cam Green is now out for the summer. He's got to have back surgery. So that probably means that, yes, Smith will go back down to 4, and then it's probably a bat off for that opening spot. I think between Harris and quite possibly Constas. Now, Constas made hundreds in both innings against South Australia. He's only 19, but there's been talk within cricket. I think it's probably the most I've heard about a batter since Ricky Ponting. I think I heard Wiley from WA a bit as well, and he's fallen away a bit.
Bukowski before he got
Bukowski as well was the other one.
Concussions
was the other one, but yeah, we've heard a lot about Constas, so I wouldn't be surprised if they jettison him. He is in the right state from New South Wales, where you get your baggy blue and baggy green at the same time. So going to be a really important round of Shield games, and then the Australia A game, which Nathan McSweeney will captain too. I did get told that on the weekend, which is good news as well.
Absolutely. All right, mate. Let's get into Around the Grounds.
Around the Grounds.
All right, mate, we are going to talk some more cricket. It was a nice little opening there on the cricket, but we're going to follow up with the basketball and the AFLW. But we've still got the trade period going in the AFL, so let's have a little bit of a talk about that. Changes needed at Port Adelaide, but what changes can they make on field and off field that'll see them take the next step next season?
Oh, look, I still think they'll get the Lukosius deal done. Apparently, Rory Atkins is in the fray, and I admit I laughed at that. That stuns me.
Yep. Is that to top up Port Adelaide's SANFL side?
Well, it's bizarre for mine because he's going to be an AFL contracted player, so I just think it's crazy. I'm stunned by that. Takes me a fair bit to stun me with things, but that's one. If it happens, it's bizarre.
Is it a case of them trying to throw in the set of steak knives just to get the job done?
Pair of pretty average steak knives, quietly. So, cool. It's got me beat.
Well,
I think the trade period just goes for too long.
Right.
Look, with typical, as we know, AFL were desperate to have footy, front centre 366 days a year. We've used that line before.
Yes.
But it's just dragging on and on. And still, there's really been very little done. It's all going to be done in the last day, as we know, again. And,
Well, question without notice here, and I did have it on my run sheet, but I know that you need your glasses at the moment, so I'm sort of leading you through this one a little bit nicely.
Yes, I have left them home. Fatal error.
But should the trade period be extended to June 30 to allow teams to top up where needed with injuries that go along the way? There was something floated a little bit last week on that, just to try and get us out of this stalemate period for so long. It just gives that little bit of flexibility to teams, or would you rather have it done, dusted?
I'd rather have it done and dusted.
Whatever your list is whatever your list is.
That's how I feel.
So then that sort of then goes back to the mid-season draft. Should clubs have a supplemental list that they can choose from of players that they have already earmarked?
Possibly, but there's 42
or 43.
or 43. So it's still a hell of a lot.
Yep.
Maybe you could have a couple more in that way, but that's still a lot. Now, Brisbane ended up winning the premiership. Brisbane lost 5 guys to knee recos last year and still won the flag. So, I just think...
They sort of bucked the trend a little bit?
Yeah, I just think it is potluck. It is, injuries are part of the game. So, what's the difference there compared to Nord losing Finn Hurd in the grand final? So, therefore, do you have another player on standby there as well? So, I just don't think I think we go far enough, and there's things which are unlucky.
Obviously, some big deals that need to get done, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But Port Adelaide in particular, Stuart Dew's been floated as potentially coming. What do they need off-field or on-field to get them over the line? Because that's what fans are asking for. Some say Kenny's not the man for the job. Others say he is. But you need that whole team, don't you?
Yes, I still thought it was bizarre last year, though, because Nathan Bassett only lost his job because he was the one person out of contract. Yeah, that was just crazy. Nathan Bassett's very highly regarded within footy as a coach.
Yep.
Just crazy. So, yeah, I thought that was ridiculous.
Were you surprised that Melbourne was probably the one club that was looking for an assistant coach that he may go to?
Not really, because he did work with Goody at Essendon previously.
Yep.
Played with Goody as well, but did work with him at Essendon. So I'm not really surprised there.
Okay, no, fair enough. All right, let's move on to Adelaide. What changes do Adelaide need to make to move up from the bottom six to potentially the middle six or higher?
Well, they've already brought in a new director of coaching, so, I think there's only so much you can do. They've done that. I think they've recruited pretty well in this pre-season draft. I think they've brought in three. Well, Petling's not done yet, but he will get done.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've brought in three players who will be in their best 22, and then you've got the draft to come.
Yep.
So I think Adelaide have done pretty well.
Off-field, obviously, they've done well. On-field, they've done well. Do you see them using pick 4 on Draper? That's probably the one question I've got, and we'll talk about the draft picks that Adelaide do have. At the moment, they did trade out a pick to Melbourne, I believe, today or late yesterday.
Pick swaps.
So at the moment, currently, Adelaide hold pick 4 and 64.
Yeah, because the word is that 64 and 82 is going to be enough for Welsh, is what the word is. So, yeah, which I find a little bit surprising. But anyway, Look, Adelaide, if Draper is there, and I repeat, if he's there, I'll be very disappointed if they don't pick him. I've seen him enough. Saw him, he was South Australia's best player last year as an underager. People this year saying, he didn't do enough in the National Carnival. He shouldn't even have bloody played.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Port Adelaide currently was pick 39 and 58, but with that deal with, Gold Coast, Collingwood.
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen.
Trying to massage it there. They might get pick 13 somewhere back in the return.
Yeah,
so
they lose Houston, they will get back in the draft.
Yep. 13 seems to be the magic number for a lot of teams at the moment, isn't it?
It's weird.
Which is absolutely crazy. Adelaide, how do you see their season this year? Disappointment, probably from my point of view. I thought it was a disappointment. Almost not counting their chickens before they hatched last year, but I think they just sort of thought that it was going to happen after the year that they had previously.
Maybe. I think losing Thilthorpe was absolutely vital. And, they did have some injuries, but they were very disappointing. To lose to Richmond and Essendon at home was very poor. Well, shit house, really.
Yep.
So overall they were pretty average. I still think there's some big weaknesses there. Still got a big weakness in ruck. Nothing's changed there.
Yep.
That's like Blue Hill, Blue Hills just keeps happening. So there's still big question marks. So, yes, Neil Bullen, which hopefully means Lockie Murphy doesn't play. But that's just a case, as I've said, for mine, that's my biggest frustration as Adelaide supporter, that they worship mediocrity. Yep. Brian, Murphy, etc. So,
do you see that changing with the new director of coaching?
It's a bit hard when you've still got... So, realistically, if Lockie Murphy wasn't on contract for next year, he would have got delisted.
Yep.
Now, that's just crazy. It's just very poor list management. Yep. How in the hell he had a 2-year contract is bizarre.
So does that go back to Justin Reid and his team?
Yeah, it does. That's a shocking one because I still think James Rowe's a better player.
Yes.
So, anyway.
We'll stick with Adelaide. We'll go back to Port Adelaide in a minute, but obviously Adelaide delisting Lockie Gallant, Will Hamill, Elliot Himmelberg, which was a free agent anyway. Yeah. Ned McHenry for me was an interesting one, and Patrick Parnell.
I go back with Ned McHenry. If he'd been given the opportunities Murphy was given, I think he's a better player. I just can't work it out. It's got me bad.
So, if you were to pick one of those guys up as a preseason selection, which one, Gallant, Hamill, McHenry, or Parnell, are you going with?
I don't think Adelaide will pick any of them.
No. I'm just saying hypothetically.
I think Gallant and McHenry are both chances to get picked up by someone. Yep. I think they're the two most likely.
Yep, fair enough. And we'll move over to Port Adelaide.
Yeah.
How did you see Port Adelaide's year? Obviously bowing out in a pretty disappointing prelim final.
Yeah, it was, but Sydney was better. I still think Port overachieved with that list. I really do. Yes, they had the star-studded midfield, but they had weaknesses in the forward line and weaknesses in defence. So I think they did incredibly well to finish third.
So
remarkable.
There's a reflection on Ken's coaching ability.
Yeah, I think not only Ken, but Carr, etc. I think you know, you can only perform what the ability you've got. For
Mm-hmm.
mine, Port overachieved personally.
Yep.
Looking at it realistically.
Yep.
And, you know, I laugh with some Port things. So, you know, he still hasn't won a premiership. There's no year whatsoever since he's been there they had anywhere near the best list.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Whereas Sydney, Brisbane.
Well, you go back to when Port were minor premiers three
Geelong,
times. Port were minor premiers 3 times in a row, and they finally won that flag in 2004 under Choco. You can make a case that they underachieved then more so than under Hinkley, personally.
Well, they had the star-studded team back in those days, that's for sure. Port Adelaide obviously retired Charlie Dixon. Tom McCullum was delisted and Trent McKenzie retired. Not a lot to work with still. That's the problem, isn't it? And you potentially lose Houston.
Yeah, lose Houston and obviously big question mark on Marshall. So there's a few things still to, you know, they need Lord to come through. They need Georgiadis to kick on. They're going to have a very young forward line to rely on those because it's going to be Lord, Georgiadis, possibly Marshall, and probably Lukosius. So it's going to be very young. So, yeah.
Where do you see Port finishing next year? Do you see them probably in that middle 6?
Yeah, that's where I sort of think they are.
You see Adelaide being in that middle 6?
Probably a little bit still below.
Okay.
Personally, I think St Kilda, St Kilda, Collingwood, possibly Melbourne. Who knows with Melbourne because they seem to have imploded a bit. So we've just got to wait and see. But St Kilda are the one. They've got a fair bit of reasonable youth. Bizarrely getting, draft choice 8 as a compensation for battle. Jeez.
Yep. IKEA start the car market moment.
It's like being given a Rolls for trading in a mini minor. A reasonable player for draft choice 8, staggering. So,
and that's all because of the length of the system, contract. And that needs to change. And
it does, because you can also make accusations that the clubs can confer, you pay that a bit, so we'll let it go through. And it's just, I just think there shouldn't be compensation. I'd rather have no compensation than what's going on at the moment.
Certainly the top 10 or top 12 shouldn't be touched at all. I totally agree. All right, mate, let's still stay on the AFL. The silly season, as we've just talked about, is coming to an end. What's the big domino for you that has to fall before everything else falls into place? Is it Bailey Smith? Is it potentially Oliver? Is it the Collingwood,
I think
Houston?
I think it's Houston.
Houston sort of deal?
The word is that Geelong are going to back themselves in to pick up Smith in the national draft at 17 because he's refusing to do a fitness thing with any other club. They reckon no other club will therefore look at him. So Geelong are saying, well, up you. If you don't want to do draft choice 17, we'll just pick him with 17. So,
but is that not draft tampering, though?
No, because the other teams can pick it in front of him.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, I would.
Absolutely.
Bloody, if I was St Kilda or Adelaide, Adelaide's draft choice 4, which is probably a little high for him. But if I was someone with St Kilda having 7 and 8, I know I'd pick him with number 8. So, yeah.
Could we see a standoff there?
Yeah, I think it's a potential. And Barras still to be sorted out. So there's still a lot to go, and because it drags on too long.
Yep.
And I think clubs also feel that they've got to do that to make it look like they're trying to do the best for their player and that crap. Hey, if Richmond get draft choice 6 for Rioli, that's just as bad as 8 for Battle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's crazy as well, and I think that's poor by Gold Coast.
Yep.
So desperate to pick up an experienced player, but
and Gold Coast haven't exactly had the best track record for that as well. So
got me back.
Very interesting. All right, let's talk about SA's young draft prospects doing it tough in the draft camp or the combine. But there were some sons and daughters of some famous fathers that attended, and I think they went all right.
Yeah. Oh, look, Indy Rashid will dominate at women's footy. Trust me, she's a class above 90% of the players who are playing now.
Yep.
She'd walk into any AFLW side.
Is she the next Aaron Phillips?
I think so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Young Patterson, Stephen's young daughter.
Yeah,
there.
Violet's a chance.
Yep.
I think Collingwood will pick her.
Okay.
So out of that, certainly hoping so.
Yep. And a couple of obviously boys there doing quite well. I haven't got the full list, but I know that the South Australian Camperelli, the South Australian contingent was pretty strong this year, and it is a strong draft.
Jay Polkinghorn, young Bowman, Lockie's son.
Yes.
And Newton, Jacob Newton are the three from Nord who are probably the most likely. Ned Bowman. Yeah, Lockie would have shot me if I hadn't thought of that in time.
No worries. Obviously, very, very important for those young fellas to put their best foot forward, or young ladies as well to put their best foot forward. Always interesting to watch the draft camp and see how they're going there. All right, do clubs need to play a little more hardball? And we sort of talked about this a little bit. We touched on it. With their stars and not allowing them to go for low picks.
Yeah, it's still a hard one. I'm mixed on that one, really am. So
Yep.
I'm not sure.
Yep. It probably relates back to the Bailey Smith one that we're talking about earlier. But there has been some that have happened in previous years. A few clubs have stuck to their guns. Yep. It would be interesting to see if somebody picks a player that is available.
I reckon Ball is the last one where from St Kilda and Collingwood went, right, we're going to pick him in the main draft, and they did. So, yeah.
And probably famously the one before that was Nick Stevens.
Was going to go to Collingwood and ended up at Carlton. So, yeah.
Yep. All right, and one more. The Oliver situation at Melbourne just keeps going from bad to worse. Does he take a pay cut to get to Geelong? How does that work?
I still think it's going to be too hard for it to happen.
But then where does that leave all parties? Because at the moment, I don't know about you, I'm not a Melbourne supporter, but if I'm a Melbourne supporter, that leaves a little bit of a dirty taste in your mouth, doesn't it? Or are they professional enough these days?
Yeah, these days they'll move on and smooth it over. But you do want to, it is a real worry where Melbourne are at.
Yep. Yeah. You're right. A little bit of a worry there. All right, let's talk about a few delistings and obviously retirements. The big one for me is probably Geelong. Phoenix Foster, Mitch Hardy, Tom Hawkins, Emerson Jerker, Oscar Murdoch, Brandon Parfitt, Gary Rowan, Zach Tui, and James Willis. So there's a
changing of the guard.
It is a little bit.
I'm surprised Parfitt was delisted. I really thought someone would have picked him up as a trade, so I'm surprised at that.
Yep.
Obviously, as a Nord man, hopefully Phoenix Foster comes back. And that, which has probably been Nord's main recruiting the last couple of years, and since Nord have losing players left, right, centre at the moment.
Yep. We'll talk about that a bit later.
Yeah, it's
not good. But there's some players there that do have some currency. Someone like a Tex Wanganeen, obviously being delisted by Essendon, is that something that Port Adelaide might look at?
I'd be surprised.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Elite speed, but probably defensively a little bit needs a little bit of work.
I had more to do with him when he was younger, so it's a bit harder to comment now he's older.
Yep. Do you think he fit into that Essendon system?
Just not really sure. Look, let's just say as a youngster there were queries about his work ethic.
Yep.
Now, I'm talking about that was when he's 12, 13.
Yep.
So I'm being hard on him to say that. That may not be the case
now.
anymore.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. No, I just thought, obviously, Wanganeen being a famous name there, and Port Adelaide might look at picking him up as a supplementary or a rookie. Exactly right. Yeah. The other big one for me, obviously, from Carlton is Jack Martin. Interesting to see.
I think he'll end up at Geelong. Is that the way it sounds?
Yeah, with Tyson Stengel.
Yeah, the word is that he will get to Geelong. Probably the most one for me yesterday was it sounds like Sam Day from Gold Coast and, of course, South Australian boy, Prince's and Sturt boy. He's the only person I've ever seen step over a ruck bag. I saw that at Prince's one night. I'm still spellbound by that. That he may well end up at Brisbane as the sort of Danaher bit, which I thought was in it. He is 32, but it sounds like that's a possibility. And obviously, I really hope it goes through. I'd love him to play in a successful side.
Absolutely. And the other one is probably Jake Stringer. Does he end up at GWS?
Yeah, the word is today they reckon he will.
How does that work with Hogan having such a successful year? Or does that give him
Stringer's more the float.
Backup?
Stringer's more the float around the ground a bit. And I think they'll put the acid on him to be pretty fit and all that. So, yeah.
Should be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, mate, let's stick with the AFL just for a touch longer. Listing Port Adelaide and Adelaide's top 4 captains. Mate, in any order you want to go, obviously Bickley, Rasciuto, Walker-Sloan as a combination, and McDermott from the Crows.
McDermott's still elite leadership for getting everyone together early. I still find it fascinating that Neil Craig ranks Simon Goodwin as the best captain ever had. I always,
And apologies for leaving him off that list.
Value Craigie's opinion highly and always found that interesting. Look, Taylor Walker had to captain through something which no other captains had to do. The coach getting murdered.
Yep.
And his leadership and that to keep that group together. Look, I respect Tex enormously.
Yep. The
whole racial bit, I will still always be so angry at that the full story is, I think it's pathetic that it's never fully come out. And I certainly am fully in the Taylor Walker camp.
Yep. Bickley and Rasciuto, obviously we've had Bix on the show.
Rate Bix very highly and rate Roo highly. Roo jump on my back, follow me.
Yep.
Bix probably more as the communicator with the youngsters and everyone together.
Mm-hmm.
And, dual premiership captain Bix, yes, not he's not as good a player as Roo or Bix, and he happily admits that himself.
Yes.
But still obviously a fantastic captain and that as well.
Yep.
So
if I had to twist your arm for a ranking, 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's not a sitting on the fence one. I think it's hard. I think it's something you need to be involved with.
Yep.
I don't reckon you can rank as an outsider on that. I've always been on that. I've never ranked. I just think if involved a bit more.
Yep.
Yeah, you can. I've probably got more opinion on Nord, but again, that's still a bit slurred.
Yep.
Slurred as well.
Yep. No, I just thought I'd throw it out there because obviously Adelaide have had some pretty good captains over the journey. You're right. Bickley, obviously 2-time premiership, so you sort of rank that higher. Walker, as you said, through that very difficult period. McDermott, obviously, through the beginning where it was mighty hard to get the club up and running in a very short space of time.
And also that you've got to remember that all of a sudden you're a teammate out of someone you might have tried to belt shit out of 3 weeks,
exactly right.
earlier on. So
absolutely
that was different.
We better move across the road there to Port Adelaide. Treadray, Boak, Jonas, and Cassisi are the ones that I've got on my list.
No,
obviously,
I want to add Primus.
Primus
was a
very
good leader.
Yep.
Really. And Primus was really good that he was a bit of both. He was a social guy.
Yes.
To get you guys together socially, but also on the footy side as well.
Yep.
Treadray probably very good on the footy side.
Yep.
Primus better on the social side.
Yep.
And that side of things, which is probably that's where you need the dynamic together.
But does that come from that generation of players that were still transitioning into almost full-time football?
And personality as well.
Yep.
Primus is more a social person.
Yep. So if you had to rank your 4 or 5 there, where do you see Boak sitting? And obviously
Boak very high as well. I think because Boak was both.
Yes.
Primus, Boak, Treadray. Yeah, again, as I said, it's so hard because you're not involved in it.
And I know from a Nord point of view, we're going to be a little bit skewed towards Tom Jonas here, but obviously wasn't a high draft pick. Had to work his way through, had to earn his spot, and then all of a sudden captain of Port Adelaide.
Oh, Tommy got the absolute utmost out of himself. Huge respect for Tom. And Tom was similar to Bix. Not the best player, but worked their absolute arse off. And Bix probably had more ability than Tom.
Yep.
But worked absolute guts of the club and really jump aboard, follow the example, and Tom was fantastic in that way.
Yep. Last one on the AFL, mate. If you could pick any one player from any other team at the moment currently playing to put into, obviously, the Crows for you, who are you picking, Matt? I know it's a bit of a loaded question, but you can go on any angle you want to go.
I'm still probably the Bont. I think, let's be honest, he's been just an unbelievable player in a reasonable side, not a gun side, and a reasonable side, and capable of doing everything in terms of out of the middle and then go forward and kick goals.
Yep.
Look, Cripps has been unreal as well.
Yep.
I think a little bit too loved by the umpires. I thought that was a bit extraordinary, but fantastic as well. Look, and you've got Gordon or Heaney on his day.
Yep.
Heaney on his day is unbelievable. So that one's a hard one as well.
No, fair enough. For me, it's probably either Bontempelli or Neil coming into Carlton's midfield would, I think, just give them that turbocharge. But like anything, I think a lot of clubs need to start valuing their backmen a lot more, because I think that's where it starts.
Oh, yeah,
it?
it does. And see, Wiedering signed a long-term deal today with Carlton. Now, he's probably the premier backman that Sam Collins, Taylor at GWS are probably the others. So, yeah.
Yep, and Max Michelani, which we know quite well. Obviously, that floating backman that can take a tall or take a small.
Yeah, and Max is a very good player, and I still think he's capable of playing midfield as well.
Yep, I see him as a bit of that Wiedering role.
Yeah,
locking down that back line. All right, mate, let's take a very, very quick break. Coming up, the Adelaide 36ers are back, and the AFLW, Adelaide obviously getting up in a tight one, losing a tight one to Melbourne at Nord Oval. And Port Adelaide getting up over Collingwood at Alberton.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
Looking to buy or sell your home anywhere in Adelaide, from the hills to the sea? Meet Gary KRIEVS, your dedicated local agent from OUWENS CASSERLY Real Estate. With unparalleled knowledge of Adelaide's housing market and a commitment to exceptional service, Gary ensures a smooth and stress-free experience for all your real estate needs. Trust the expert, trust Gary KRIEVS at OUWENS CASSERLY Real Estate. Your next dream home awaits. Contact Gary today on 0422 071 317 or on email garyk@ocre.com.au. And for more listings, please visit owenscasserly.com.au. Make it happen. Once again, we thank our sponsors for helping us out here. But, mate, we move on to the Adelaide 36ers. A couple of really, really good games, and getting up over the Sydney Kings was probably the highlight of the weekend for me, in a very, very good display that seemed to have all the pieces come together.
Yeah, especially because Sydney scored the first 8 points of the game, and then Adelaide came back and were really probably in control the majority of the rest of the game there. I want to have a crack at their scheduling, though. Absolutely ridiculous. If you're going to play a team 2 days later, surely they've got to play it as well. Mm-hmm. It's just ridiculous. Like, we're quite rightly having a crack at the AFLW for the stupidity of scheduling all these games. And we'll come back to that. Yeah. Scheduling all these games close together. But the NBL, you're playing 2 days later against a team which hasn't played for 6 days. It's just crazy.
Yep. Does make a big, big difference, especially
massive.
With elite performers these days. They need that recovery. Unfortunately, the couple of wins that they got to sort of get us back on track a little bit was the air was taken out of the tyres a little bit against Melbourne United, obviously at John Cain Arena there in Melbourne, 160-79. That score doesn't reflect, obviously.
Well, it was 1 point the difference just before half-time, and then they pulled clear, and you query there because of the travel and the game schedule. Again, if you're going to play 2 days later, surely at least you're at home, not travelling away as well. Just it's garbage.
Anyway, that's for the NBL
pathetic
to work out. Obviously, the 36ers' next game is against the Tasmanian Jack Jumpers at the Entertainment Centre, 4 p.m. This Sunday coming. So if you can get a ticket, get along. If you can't get a ticket, obviously watch, I'm assuming, YouTube, Paramount.
Yeah, I tell you what, they're consistently selling out. They're 9 to 10,000. So whatever, basketball, all other sports should be doing a study of basketball.
Yep, and we have talked about that before as well. We'll stick with basketball for another minute or two. The Southeast Melbourne coach sacked after a 0-6 start. Yeah. How does it change so quickly, and is it really about wins and losses?
Oh, it is. It's a cutthroat, ruthless business. You're 0-6, but geez, tell you what, it's a fateful decision because you'd have to get paid out at least a sizable percentage. Well, I'm not sure of the exact rules in basketball.
Yep.
Might try and chase that up this week, actually.
Yep.
Because, it is incredible, really.
So they've come out
so early in the year.
That's
now,
what I'm saying.
What are they going to do if they're Norton 13? Do we go to the third coach? Because that's what they do in English soccer.
Yep.
And you just shake your head in disbelief following it. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it is absolutely crazy. All right, mate, we did talk about the cricket a little bit earlier, but obviously the local Premier League started round 1. Round 2, what have we got to look forward to?
So there's games on Saturday. The start of the 2-day comp is Saturday, and then there's further the rest of the one-day second round is this Sunday as well. So
Gotcha.
I'm sure I'll be out and about having a look at various times.
Absolutely. I look forward to the report there. Solid effort by, obviously, SA getting the draw, which you did mention a little bit earlier. That was probably my highlight a little bit from the weekend there, that we were in trouble and finally, batted out and got the draw. So really, really well done there. All right, let's move on to the AFLW. Adelaide going down very, very in a display that probably shows you that playing games in a very short space of time does play a little bit of havoc with players' recovery. Melbourne against Melbourne at Nord Oval, you were obviously on the scoreboard there. It looked like a messy, sort of diabolical game, to be honest with you.
It was worse than that. It was horrendous. It was a terrible game, appallingly umpired. Nowhere near enough protection for the player making the play. At one stage, there were players from both sides held back because one particular umpire was just playing holding the ball, and just it was shit house. The worst umpire I've seen in a long time.
Yep.
And the standard of the game was pay more free kicks to the person making the play. Pay over the shoulder in the back to keep the ball moving.
Yep.
I'm sorry, umpiring women's footy is similar to umpiring young kids' footy, where you pay free kicks to keep the ball moving.
Yep.
Moving, and not just the pinging the player, making all the play. Oh, and there was 150 played by Sam Morgan, was atrocious. If Sarah Allen moved, she moved a millimetre. I don't think she moved.
Yes.
It was
that.
Kath and Kim umpiring. Look at me. Crap. It was appalling.
Yep. Something needs to be done, but I think also the part of playing 3 games for most teams in 10 days makes a huge difference.
Look, Sarah Allen, I got a lot of time for. She's footy smart, growing up in a footy family. Her dad Keith played in Central's first ever league side. You can see Sarah's grown up playing footy. She looks so lethargic and flat.
Yep.
And just the games are caught up. And look, guys struggle with 3 games in 10 days. I think it makes it even worse with women's footy because it's such a contest. It's contest after contest.
Yep.
And
I'm glad you brought that up because I think that rolling scrum doesn't help.
No, it doesn't. It was terrible.
And why are we putting additional stresses on the female game when they are still let's be realistic here, they're still in this development phase.
Massively.
And
they've grown it too quick. There's not enough quality for 18 teams yet. So they're going, it's been poorly run, and then so they want an extra game, which I think is great, fine.
Yep.
The more games you play, so trying to get it so you play each other more. Yes, well, the season's got to be lengthened a week. The AFL not to lengthen the season
was the biggest mistake of all.
It was just absolute stupidity, incompetence, still being polite.
Do you agree with trying to get those games during school holidays?
Look, I don't mind that. And look, I was actually surprised last Wednesday night that it was certainly over 2. They declared 2.5. Maybe a little bit of gravy.
Yep.
But there was certainly over 2 there at Nord, and I was surprised there was that many.
Yep. If it goes back to the beginning of the year, which we're calling out for here, do we see them sort of sticking with those 3 or 4 games within a 10-day period?
I hope not. Surely,
me personally, I don't either.
Surely they've got to admit, right, that was a really bad decision and a fail.
Yep.
They've got to be honest enough to admit, no, we can't play. We've got to play them just every week. Yep. 6 days is the minimum.
Yep. We move on to Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide getting up against Collingwood by 8 points.
Yep.
A very, very fair effort. And not only have they kept their top 8 chances alive. They're well and truly in the hunt now, aren't they?
Yeah, so Port St Kilda is a huge game. So, full credit to Port there. And Molly Brooksby going on well. Peter Schultz took a hanger.
I was about to say that hanger was an absolute beauty.
No, Peter can play.
Yep.
Yes, no, I rate her very highly.
Yep.
And that, so, it'd actually be a very good game, them in St Kilda.
Yeah. Are you surprised that they've done so well considering they lost their captain, game one with a knee reconstruction?
A little bit of a surprise.
And the retirement of, obviously, Aaron Phillips last year as well. So you thought that there was a little bit of a hole, but their youth is really standing up, and some of the local youth too.
And especially if they get Indy Rashid in and all that.
Changes it.
And another step. Step forward.
Absolutely. And then to finish us off there was Adelaide played GWS on Sunday there, getting up by 64 points. I think a bit of a rocket might have been coming out of the change room from Matty Clark on the Wednesday. But like you sort of said, they reviewed the game on the ground, over, done with, let's just get on with it. Thank you very much for the last couple of games.
And let's remember against Melbourne too, they kicked 1-8. Now they missed 3 or 4 absolute sitters. If they'd hit the front, so Melbourne couldn't just have 3 players behind the ball.
Yes.
That would have opened up the game and probably would have been more goals kicked and all that. And Adelaide's decision-making when going forward was abysmal as well. When they should have gone long, they went short and vice versa.
Yep.
Players still don't understand, well, hang on, you've got the defender on the fat side lead. Don't just jostle lead. And, Hatchard was disappointing there and Ponter as well. So there was a couple of things there out of that game. And Ebony Marinoff frustrates me. I'll be blatantly honest.
Yep.
Love her endeavour. Works her backside off. Gets to the contact, but demands the ball when she's not the best option. And I think because she's captain, they give her the ball. Mm-hmm. And there was one shocking case last Wednesday night against Melbourne where she shouldn't have been calling for the ball. She should have been running because her opponent was right on her tail. And she should have been running into space and create opening. And so there's still a lot of errors being made where, let's be honest, you play footy as a kid. You learn more. Your brain takes in more as a kid. Mm-hmm. It's harder learning as an adult.
Yep.
But there's still blaring football dumb and lack of footy nous.
Yep.
And Ebby Marinoff is right at the top of my tree with that one.
First played at 2,000 possessions as well.
As I said, respect her endeavour and great at getting the ball, but poor decision maker.
Fair enough. Let's talk about round 8. We're sort of back to a normal, traditional sort of round here. Thursday night, Carlton v the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I'll go Carlton. Now, Bulldogs have not kicked a goal in the last 3 games. Now, that is atrocious.
It's a bit scary considering they were one of the benchmarks there for a little while. Carlton for me. Port Adelaide v St Kilda. This one I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I'll go for Port.
Now, this one's being played at Alberton Oval.
Yeah, yep.
Port have got that little fortress happening down there at Alberton.
I'll go for Port.
I'm going to go for Port Adelaide there as well. Hawthorn jumping up the ladder at the moment, a bit like their male counterparts, taking on GWS.
Yeah, I'll go for Hawthorn.
Hawthorn for me. Sydney v the Suns. I think the winner might be a sunburn there.
Yeah, probably doesn't really matter. I'll go Sydney.
Sydney for me. Melbourne v the Tigers.
I'll go the Tigers.
Tigers for me. West Coast v the Dockers. Ooh, Derby.
Yeah, Derby. I'll go West Coast. But toss the coin.
I'm going to go Freo on that one. Geelong v the Lions.
I'll go Lions.
Lions for me. Essendon v North Melbourne.
I'll go North Melbourne.
And Collingwood v Adelaide at Victoria Park.
Yeah, I'll go Adelaide.
Adelaide for me as well. All right, mate. Let's take a very, very quick break. We've got coming up. Peter Carey, part 2. Really looking forward to that.
Sensational.
Absolutely. And Greg Blewett, part 1. Getting into cricket season, we thought we'd better give it a bit of a cricket flavour.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
Are dents and scratches putting a dent in your day? Introducing Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide, your trusted solution for automotive woes. With over 2 decades of expertise, Roger Steen Crash Repairs guarantees top-notch service, restoring your vehicle to its former glory in no time. From minor dings to major collisions, our skilled technicians handle it all with precision and care, using state-of-the-art equipment and techniques.
Roger Steen Crash Repairs saved my car. It looks brand new.
Fast, friendly and reliable. I wouldn't trust anyone else with my vehicle. Don't let accidents slow you down. Visit Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide at 14 Penner Avenue, Glynde, for quality service you can count on. And here's a special offer just for our listeners. Mention this podcast and receive a $100 discount on your repair. Roger Steen Crash Repairs Adelaide. Excellence in every repair.
Flashbacks.
All right, today on Flashbacks, as we mentioned last week, we want to talk about some dynasties of some clubs, and we did Glenelg last week for the 85-86 grand final, but we thought we'd bring it back to Nord a little bit here and talk about the 2013, 14 and 15 three-peat.
12, 13,
12, 13, 14 three-peat.
Yep.
Obviously, your memories, mate?
12, most relaxed I've ever been going to a grand final. I sat with Michael Dadds and just very calmly explained absolutely everything Nord were doing under Bass's game plan and that day. And he said, why do you know that so much? I said, I might have read it.
Yes.
And, pointing out Andrew H. playing as a defensive wingman and his quarterback role. And, so it was – West Adelaide were crazy. I actually was with Michael Barker on that Friday, and he was an assistant coach at West Adelaide. And I said, if I was Westies, I'd start a 7-man forward line. I would do something completely different. He said, Rulebook, couldn't agree with you more, but Collins, no way in the world will do that. I said, he's just too pig-headed for his own good.
Yep.
Barks just smiled, said, I better not comment on that one. And I said, if we'll beat you 99 times out of 100 playing the defensive bit, and it was exactly that. 13 against North Adelaide. Nord, we were very happy that Lewis Johnston lined up at centre-half back for North Adelaide. I thought that was a poor move by Josh Franco. And while it got interesting a couple of times, Brett Zorsey was very good in his last game, won the Jack Odie, and Ben Warren also very, very good as well.
Absolutely. Sit back, relax. And
14 was a great game.
Yeah, absolutely. Sit back, relax, and enjoy some of the highlights we've got. We might actually extend some of the coverage on these flashbacks on our YouTube channel, so you can watch a quarter or a half a game and obviously relive some of those magic moments, not only from Nord's three-peat there, but Glenelg, and we've got some other teams coming up as well.
We better do Centrals on that one.
Absolutely. All right, sit back and enjoy.
3 goals to 2 still. Look at the flags around the ground. No breeze by the look of things, but runner left of screen works best so far today. It was the same case in the reserves game when we saw the Eagles get over Sturt. This is big Mitch Harvey. Played every game.
They're all brothers to you, I'm sure, but which 2 teammates played in the same 7? Darren Smith, Rowan Smith, George Fiarchi or Scott Hodges? And while you ponder that, we'll get back to Tommy Cleary at the moment as Wilson comes in, did well to prevent something, and now Panos goes to work. He drills it home, and he gives Norwood the lead.
Well, that's a really important goal.
Approaching the 17-minute mark, Stephen Summerton, the Port Adelaide captain, drives them forward. Going deep, looking for Butcher. Takes the mark. Had Stewart available, but couldn't get the ball there quickly enough. Campbell Heath looming in the goal square as well. It's a strong mark from John Butcher. And now he's farmed it off and they find Cracker.
Well, at the 17-minute mark, 11 points down. This is a very difficult shot for Cracker. You reckon it's not an important one?
Goal kicker in the second quarter and also in the third. He comes in looking for his third of the game. He's threaded the needle and Port Adelaide are alive.
jumper was Young. It's coming back to Webber under pressure. Young on the bottom of the pack. Free kick. Andrew Crosby's come in. So here's Aaron Young right at half-back. They've got to get this moving quickly. 26 minutes gone.
No time to waste.
Probably got to roll.
Archie has to go. Stewart must play on. Newton calling for it, looks to go longer with a torpedo punt into the forward line, but that is not going to get there, and it is all over, and Benny Warren and Northern have prevailed in an epic SANFL Grand Final by 4 points.
Extra time. Big finish.
All right, mate, let's kick off with...
Well, we better go on the 14 one. So the 14, I'd was coaching with Pembroke in cricket and I'd scored. We'd made the one-day final and we played Grange, which actually was the worst club to play because Grange guys, so many of them are just so used to playing at Adelaide Oval.
Yes.
No big deal.
Yep.
Where our guys were overawed a bit by it. But where I scored is where the siren is. And Pembroke were getting hammered and about the 16th over, I pushed the siren and everyone burst out laughing. And when the last quarter didn't go quite as well, go as long as we thought it was going to, Ref Sturck said, "Rule, did you get up the scoreboard because you know where the siren is?" So, yeah.
I love those little moments that happen during those grand finals. There's a story for everyone. And
yes.
By all means, if anyone wants to comment and give us their memories, that'd be absolutely fantastic. All right, let's move on to tennis in the extra time big finish, mate. Rafa announces his retirement, and it's been a wonderful career. I mean, what can you say?
A doyen of the sport, fantastic ambassador for the sport, loved in Australia. Interestingly enough, heard him complimented today with his involvement with having Australians over in Spain at the Nadal Academy over there as well. So, yeah, look, Nadal and Federer, an era has ended, but it's great how often we're seeing Roger still, and hopefully I reckon Nadal might be with him a bit. I reckon they might have the odd beer or two together over this bit coming up.
Do you think they feel that sort of incumbency to continue to promote the game to get it over this little hump?
Yeah, and I think there's massive respect there between the two of them. Like, who knows what's happening in tennis at the moment? We don't know what's going to happen with Sinner and all that. He beat Djokovic
at the Shanghai Masters.
But we're not
he's
sure
got that cloud hanging over his head.
What's happening. So, tennis is a bit of a cloud at the moment.
The other probably threat, I suppose, to tennis, or maybe they could turn it into an advantage, is pickleball seems to be the new craze going around at the moment. Smaller courts, modified equipment. Or do tennis sort of look at that and go, that is a great starting point for a lot of point, and then they can move players into it?
I think so. I think that's the angle they'll take, a bit like cricket. I still think cricket's gone way too far, thinking, we'll do 2020 everywhere and that'll get people involved in the sport and then they'll get involved in the longest format, but it's gone too far. So, hopefully tennis and pickleball have that mix a bit better.
Yep, absolutely, and can work together. You did mention Sinner obviously beating Djokovic in the Shanghai Masters there, but it does mean that he ends up finishing the world number one for the year.
Yeah, so look, full credit there, but let's just watch this space is probably the only way to call it.
Absolutely. Australians doing well. Grand Slam doubles champions since 2022. Tanasi Kokkinakis and Kyrgios winning the 22 Australian Open doubles final. Wimbledon, Matt Ebden and Max Purcell in 22. In 23, it was Rinky Hichikata and Kubler. In 2024, Ebden and Rohan Bahana from India. And obviously the US Open, Purcell and Thompson. Australia's always done well in the doubles. Any type of teams event, obviously Davis Cup back in the day.
Very much so.
But obviously, in the double,
even the
doubles,
Woodies were legendary doubles pair where neither of them were great singles, but they're legendary doubles.
Absolutely. And to finish us off on tennis, mate, Kyrgios signals his intent after almost 2 years out of the game. He's going to come back and wants to win a Grand Slam. For me,
take any
talent, fantastic, but I think want, will, and desire will always beat talent.
Yeah, upstairs, Court Marsh Bowl, Lily, no score.
Yep. Do you see him getting back to that top 10, or do you think it's going to be too hard?
No, he won't put in the work. You watch, there'll be another injury, and he'll put in the too hard basket.
Yep. Bathurst, let's move on to motorsport. Bathurst 1000 has been won.
Yes.
Congratulations there. And there's a South Australian link, I think, with is it Haywood?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we'll double check on that one.
At least there's a Chico Roll connection as well.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
The race, obviously, through the qualifying had all sorts of incidents, but the race itself was basically led from go to woe, no incidences, and also almost race record.
Yeah, surprisingly in that way. You always wait for the prang, what's going to happen. Changing the guard, Toyota now. Who knows what's going to happen in the future with Bathurst? For me, it's not the same. I'm older than you, as you know.
Yep.
It was,
but it was always Ford and Holden.
Yeah, Ford and Holden, Moffat versus Brock. We
Blue
all
versus
got up,
red.
and it was, you miss. We were I was talking about it with a guy yesterday at the cricket. We're saying, geez, Bathurst, the old days you got up, you made sure you watched the start. Then you had a Bathurst party at someone's house and stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah. Kostecki obviously was the main driver there, and obviously getting his Hazelwood, was the name, getting his drive with his mate, and special things have happened there. Just on motorsport, the Adelaide 500 looks like the race grand final will be coming to Adelaide next year.
Looks that way.
Again, another little feather in the cap for the the marketing and tourism department.
Yep.
They can't do anything wrong at the moment. They seem to be getting a fair few events.
One other thing we should have covered, full credit to the Australian ladies through to the semis in the World 2020, especially after losing Elisa Healy to injury.
Yes.
So Mooney keeps. Grace Harris comes in and opens and made 40-odd. Sophie Molinick contributed. She got player of the match, probably a little bit lucky there. Mm-hmm. Talia McGrath batted a bit higher, thank goodness.
Yes.
Got 30-odd. Elise Perry got 30-odd. Only made 151, but that's been a good score over there because the tracks in Sharjah and the UAE haven't been great.
Yes.
And restricted India to 141. India did lose 4 wickets in the last over, so they were an outside chance of that start of that last over.
Yep.
But Australia got home.
Before I go on, do we see them taking out the World Cup? We're going for 4 in a row, is that right?
Hopefully. They're probably not as overwhelming favourites this year, especially after Healy getting injured as well. But and they lost another player as well, a bowler who was in or out a bit, probably wasn't an automatic selection.
Yep.
But, to lose 2 players from injury the game before and then come through and beat India was a good effort.
Absolutely. All right, let's finish off with a couple of general questions without notice here. The SANFL teams are losing players left, right and centre. Does the time commitments cause for concern?
Oh, it is. And I'm sorry, as a Nord man, I think Nord's 8 now, and a big part of that is the time commitment. And I think all SANFL clubs have got to be smarter. And Nord, I'm sorry, that's where Jade is pig-headed. And Nord, it's just too big a time commitment as it is at SANFL level. And they've all just got to be smarter about it. There's not the financial reward for the time commitment.
Yep.
And that has been part of the reason a couple of the Nord guys, and I'm not blaming them whatsoever for that call, and I just think they've got to be smarter.
Absolutely. Has the Australian Grand Prix lost a little bit of its luster?
Yeah, I think so. But then we're biased towards it was here. I admit I've never had the same interest since it's left here.
Could you see it coming back here?
I still think that's pretty unlikely financially and all that.
Yep.
They've gone put their necks on a bit for the Velo bit, and that's hopefully then. Got to remember, the Liberal government have put that in the too hard basket. Now it's been a big commitment there, and
it's been a success too.
It looks like it has, so I think they'll keep with that.
Yep, absolutely. And the last one, mate, a bit of fun to finish us off here. If you're having a dinner party, who are you inviting to your table? Any 3 to 5 special guests, sporting guests?
Interesting.
Yeah,
Look,
I thought I'd throw this one in to bamboozle you.
not so much bamboozle. I'd love to be with the two best leaders I've ever known, and that's John Wynn and Ian Chappell. So I'd love to sit and I'd love to hear their contrasting thoughts too, and all that.
Yep.
And Winnie a bit more out of left field than Ian. Ian probably more a bit straight down the line.
Yep.
So it'd be just fascinating to compare that that side of things. Yeah, I want to have a bit more of a think about that.
Okay, no, it was a big question without notice, so I
Yeah.
thought I'd chuck it in there.
Yeah.
For me, probably Neil Craig. I'd love to
Yeah.
just pick his brain,
Oh, he's fascinating.
just as far as, certain tactics and how you
Oh.
approach this situation, that situation. I know we've had him on as a guest. We sort of probed him a little bit on some stuff, but I think just to get a dinner
look,
party would be amazing.
When I interviewed Craigie for the article in my book, the article I wrote, which ended up in my book, and I interviewed him for over 5 hours,
Yep.
and he was just fascinating. And ask him a question, and it's a thought out answer. It's never a cliche crap.
Yep.
He thinks about it. He would be a superb AFL
Yep.
commissioner.
You've got 2 on your list. You've got another 2 or 3 to come up with for next week.
Yeah, I will.
I've got one on my list. The other one would probably be Bruce McAvaney, just from a pure stats point of view.
yeah.
I have met Bruce before, and
Yeah.
we've just talked stats the whole time. But I'd love to get him around the
Yeah.
dinner table, a glass of wine, and chew the fat as far as stats go. So that means I've got 3 to come up with
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah,
we'll
that's
leave
fine.
that till next week. Mate, we better wrap things up there, mate. I thank you once again for taking your time out to come in here tonight to talk a bit of footy, a bit of cricket, and some obviously some motorsports there as well. Mate, we promise to do better next time. Until then, thank you. Thank the
mate.
listeners. And if you haven't liked, rate and subscribe, please do so.
And if you think you're selling or buying a property, Gary KRIEVS, or have a prang or know of anyone who's had a prang, Craig Steen at Roger Steen, Crass Repairs.
Absolutely. I think I might have a client for Roger Steen there,
Oh, that'd be good,
or Craig
actually.
Steen. So we'll certainly push that. Until then, mate, thank you. See you next week.
See you, mate.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at Sportscast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.